Part 58. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Mocnu. Chapter 571. Your Majesty, the undead Owl King has been confirmed to have died in the Nether City. The one who killed the Owl King was a human from the Fire Organization. This person is the blood demon who killed the Lord of the Northern Desert some time ago. He holds the Ghost Box, which is suspected to be one of the ancestral magic weapons. It is preliminarily judged that this person has the strength of the Owl King. In the quiet palace, a guard was kneeling down to the figure on the throne. Blood Demon. The being on the throne murmured this name silently and fell into deep thought. The death of an Owl King caused a thunderous sensation in the entire Eternal Night dynasty. No one expected that the undead Owl King, who has always been famous for his immortality, would die in his own city. No one would have expected that the human race would be suppressed so much, and an Owl King level existence would be born. The death of the Owl King had a great impact on the Eternal Night dynasty. If it is not settled as soon as possible, it may cause disputes among the races. But what really concerned the being on the throne was not the death of the undead Owl King, but another sentence from the guard. The ancestral magic weapon, the box of the monster. The three supreme magic weapons in the hands of the first generation of demon lords, including the imperial tool that was said to be related to the fate of the Eternal Night clan, one of them was the box of the monster. With the disappearance of the first generation of demon lords, the three magic weapons also disappeared, and their whereabouts have been unknown for thousands of years. But now one of the ancestral magic weapons has unexpectedly appeared. Doesn't it mean that there is a clue to that imperial tool? In addition to the Corpse Clan including the Blood Clan requesting to arrest the Blood Demon as soon as possible, the Chaos Beast Owl King also requested that the king find out the whereabouts of the Blood Demon as soon as possible. The Chaos Beast Owl King has always been irreconcilable with the Undead Owl King. It is unbelievable that after the death of the Undead Owl King, the first one to react among the other 11 Owl Kings was the Chaos Beast Owl King. However, the guard's next words explain this. According to the report of the Chaos Beast Owl King, his beloved daughter was kidnapped by the Blood Demon and is now missing. Please arrest the Blood Demon as soon as possible. The being on the throne was silent for a moment, and then said, I already know, send the Yuyun cavalry to dispatch, order the Chaos Beast Owl King and the Night Demon Owl King to cooperate fully. If you find any trace of the Blood Demon, arrest him immediately. Remember, you can't execute him on the spot. I want him alive. A beam of blood flashed on the throne. What really concerned him was the news of the legendary Imperial tool. Yes. In a remote bamboo house in the mountains, Yeshinwei lay flat on a bamboo bed woven with bamboo silk, his eyes closed, his brows furrowed, as if he had a nightmare. Suddenly, he opened his eyes abruptly, stood up from the bed like a carp, and his chest rose and fell violently. I'm feeling the fine beads of sweat on his forehead. He subconsciously spread his hands and looked, and found that his loaded body had recovered. Except for a feeling of emptiness in his body, all the injuries on his body were healed. Yeshinwei recalled the battle in the human cage. First, Yefanyan broke into the cage to rescue him, and at the critical moment, an opponent of the Owl King level came. The blood-sucking ability of the undead Owl King completely restrained Yeshinwei's ability. In the end, he loaded his body to fuse a large number of magic soldiers, but he was still no match for the undead Owl King, and his body collapsed. In the moment before he lost consciousness, he vaguely saw a figure wearing a crimson mask walking out of the blood mist, and then he completely fainted. He thought that when he woke up again, he would return to that dark and bloody cage, but what was going on now? Just as Yeshinwei was in a daze, a magnetic voice came from beside him. Are you awake? Yeshinwei turned his head and found a black-haired man sitting on a bamboo chair beside him, holding a cup in his hand and looking at him with a smile. When he looked into the man's eyes, the familiar face instantly evoked Yeshinwei's memories. Oh my goodness! Like a frightened kitten, Yeshinwei jumped back to the corner and said nervously. You, how come you are here? As an ancient from thousands of years ago, he knew very well that the man in front of him was the ancestor of the Eternal Night clan. The undead Owl King was nothing in front of him, and the contemporary demon lord had to respectfully call him the ancestor in front of him. Yeshinwei patted his forehead in disbelief, and blood spurted out of his palm, and he took a breath of cold air. It turned out that there was a fragment of a demon soldier embedded in his forehead. The intense pain brought him back to his senses, telling him that everything in front of him was not a dream. Meow. The black cat in his arms meowed and stretched lazily. Seeing this, Mu-Chiu smiled and said, "It seems that you have recovered well." Yeshinwei shook his head, changed his arrogant look in the past, and smiled flatteringly. "It was you who saved me. I didn't expect that you, the big boss, also came here." The here in Yeshinwei's mouth naturally refers to this world 1,000 years later. He was still wondering who had the strength to save himself from the hands of the Owl King, but now he was not surprised to see that it was Mu-Chiu. Mu-Chiu shook his head and laughed. It seemed that the experience in the human cage did not change Yeshinwei's character. Yeshinwei's serious injury naturally could not wake up so quickly. He recovered so quickly only because Mu-Chiu used his ability to inject some soul essence into his body. The undead Owl King has lived for hundreds of years, and the blood and soul in his body are extremely pure. Mu-Chiu only extracted a part of the blood and soul absorbed by the ghost box to restore Yeshinwei. The reason why Mu-Chiu saved Yeshinwei was that he had some questions in his heart that needed to be answered by him. "How did you get here?" Mu-Chiu had some expectations in his heart to see Yefanyan here. After all, the door of reincarnation was opened by her jade pendant. But he was a little surprised that Yeshinwei could come to this world through the door of reincarnation. When Yeshinwei heard Mu-Chiu's question, he immediately complained to Mu-Chiu. It turned out that at the end of the Battle of the Beast Nest, Mu-Chiu stepped into the door of reincarnation and disappeared, and then Yefanyan's body surface also emitted a strange golden light. Seeing this, Yeshinwei activated his ability to attach to the jade pendant around Yefanyan's neck, and was also swept by the golden light to this world. But unlike Mu-Chiu and Yefanyan, Yeshinwei traveled to the main city of the Corpse Clan as soon as he came up. Others traveled to the novice village, but he came up to face the big boss. Yeshinwei, who was arrogant and perverse, traveled to the Corpse Clan's stronghold where humans were treated like grass, and the ending was predictable. What zombies, vampires, mummies, he offended them all. He killed many Corpse Clan troops and even killed several Lord-level beings, which eventually attracted the Owl King to come. He was physically exhausted and was captured by the Owl King, and finally imprisoned in the Corpse Clan's slaughter cage, the human cage. The news that Yeshinwei made a big fuss in the Corpse Clan quickly spread to the surrounding areas, and Yefanyan and others went to the human cage to rescue him after hearing the news, which led to the following events. So that's it? It seems that Yeshinwei knows nothing about the gate of reincarnation. Mu-Chiu nodded, as if he had realized something, and asked Yeshinwei about his experience in this world. Just then, footsteps sounded outside the door, and a middle-aged man knocked on the door and entered. "Sir, the Holy Sun wants to discuss something with you." The middle-aged man looked at Mu-Chiu with a bit of awe in his eyes. If the rumors are true, the young man in front of him is the blood demon who killed the undead Owl King. Son of the Holy Sun. Hearing the title of the Holy Sun, Mu-Chiu smiled slightly. "Okay, I know." After saying that, he stood up and looked back at Yeshinwei, squinting his eyes. "Rest well." Well, okay." Yeshinwei looked at Mu-Chiu's departing back and breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that he didn't feel so much pressure when facing the Owl King. Under the leadership of the middle-aged man, Mu-Chiu came all the way to a bamboo forest behind the bamboo house. "The Holy Sun is inside, please." The middle-aged man waved to Mu-Chiu, then turned and left. Yu was not in a hurry, and walked into the depths of the bamboo forest like a leisurely stroll. There were dense green bamboos on both sides, and the scenery was picturesque. Until the end of the bamboo forest, a woman in a long skirt stood up and looked at Yu's figure from a distance, with a complex look in her eyes. Meow. The black cat in her arms turned into a stream of flowing flames and returned to the box of the ghosts. The whole bamboo forest became quiet and deep again. A breeze blew, the bamboo flowers swayed, and two figures with their own thoughts met in the forest. Yefanyan's eyes moved, with a complex look in her eyes, looking at the spring breeze-like smile in front of her, but she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. Should I call you Kyamu, or Mukiu, or Dash? Lord of the Eternal Night. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, Yu. Chapter 572. Yu shrugged, with a smile on his lips, and the prajna mask hanging around his waist was particularly conspicuous. It's up to you. The name is just a title. Maybe you can also call me the creator of the night. He looked up at Yefanyan. Sorry, I'm not good at telling jokes. Looking at the familiar face in front of her, knowing that the other party was the source of human tragedy, Yefanyan couldn't hate him. Perhaps it was because the image of Chiumu in her heart was too deep, or perhaps it was the unspeakable complex emotions in her heart. After seeing Yu, she was speechless for a while. Why save us? She recalled the scene when the undead Owl King attacked in the human cage, and the figure wearing a ghost mask suddenly appeared in the vast blood mist and killed the Owl King with a strong posture. Yu smiled bitterly and explained, if I say it was just a coincidence, would you believe it? Half of the reason why he confronted the Owl King was to find clues to the 6 shackles. www. As for the other half, the undead Owl King wanted to kill himself and wanted to devour Yu, so Yu had to let the restless demon sword have a good meal. Why, the undead Owl King is one of the 12 night owls appointed by the 9th generation demon lord. Yu raised his index finger in front of him and corrected. You said it yourself, he is a subordinate of the 9th generation demon lord. Yu doesn't care who the undead Owl King is a subordinate of. As long as he has murderous intentions towards him, he will kill him. Now the Eternal Night Dynasty has become a climate of its own. He is not interested in being a demon lord to manage this huge empire. Back then, Yu entrusted the management of the Yuhei base to Xiao Hanyan, and he turned around and became a hands-off shopkeeper, happy to be idle. Besides, Yu still has many doubts in his heart that have not been solved. His intuition tells him that now is not the time to reveal his identity. Compared to this, I am more interested in how you came to this world, Miss Jianji. Yu said, but he had already looked at the dark green jade pendant on Yefanyan's chest. In his memory, it was the golden light emitted by this jade pendant and the silver light in Su Wen's bracelet that opened the door of reincarnation. Yefanyan's eyes flashed when he heard this, and he subconsciously grasped the jade pendant around his neck and bit his lower lip. I don't know. Oh. Yu had expected it, and a meaningful smile hung on his face, pointing to the jade pendant on Yefanyan's chest and said, Can you show it to me? Before Yefanyan could react, a gust of wind suddenly blew in front of her, and the next second Yu had flashed in front of her. When their eyes met, Yefanyan saw the deep meaning in Yu's eyes, and without saying much, he handed the jade pendant around his neck to Yu. In the face of absolute strength, she had no choice. Yu picked up the jade pendant, and suddenly a heavy and ancient breath came to his face. This feeling was as if an invisible big hand was pressing on him, and the surface of the jade pendant also flashed with strange golden light. Interesting. This jade pendant gave Yu a completely different feeling from other magic weapons or crystal cores. The breath it exuded made Yu quite familiar. It was the breath of heaven. Yu held the jade pendant in one hand and stretched out the other hand. A door surrounded by layers of clouds and mist emerged in his palm. What is this? The door of reincarnation, which is difficult to see in the eyes of ordinary people, is extremely conspicuous in Yefanyan's eyes, especially the chains that bound the door like dragons and pythons. The terrifying breath emitted from it shocked Yefanyan's heart. She felt vaguely that she had seen this door somewhere before, but she couldn't remember it no matter how hard she tried. Mu put the jade pendant and the gate of reincarnation together, but surprisingly, except for the more dazzling golden light on the surface of the jade pendant, the gate of reincarnation did not react at all. Boom! But the next second, a strange phenomenon suddenly occurred. Mu seemed to have sensed something, and looked up at the sky, and Yefanyan beside him also looked up. I saw that above the sky above the two people's heads, a huge golden eye was quietly opening. The golden pupil was full of indifference, and looked at all living beings with a disdainful look. The dark green jade pendant seemed to have sensed something, and the golden light on the surface of the jade pendant was bright, and a shadow of a holy sword emitting brilliant golden light emerged faintly. Seeing this vertical pupil, Mu's face changed. Did it really appear? This vertical pupil hidden in the sky represents the incarnation of the way of heaven, the long-lost meaning of the way of heaven. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world. Start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 573. It was as if the clouds and mist were pushed aside out of thin air, and a golden vertical eye that looked down upon all living beings suddenly appeared in the sky above. This is. Yefanyan seemed to feel something, looking at the golden pupils emerging above his head, his mind was shaken. It's like a god looking out his cold eyes, looking down at the world and looking down at everything. Mu looked at the sky with a calm look, but a suffocating energy wave was brewing around her. The surrounding bamboo forests and flowers began to wither at a speed visible to the naked eye, and a touch of blood filled the sky and the earth. Vaguely, 6 megatama circles circled in Mu's eyes, intertwining and overlapping to form a blood moon. However, the golden pupil that poked out from the sky closed its eyes in the next second and returned to the clouds and mist. The clouds rolled around and turned back to the clear sky, as if nothing had happened. This made Mu, who was just getting ready for a big battle, a little dazed. Her pupils narrowed slightly, and the surging energy waves all over her body were retracted. He looked at the jade pendant in his hand that exuded a faint golden light and fell into deep thought. The way of heaven despises all living beings, and the way of heaven is respected by thousands of people. However, his way of royal power goes against heaven and provokes the wrath of heaven. Logically speaking, Tiandeo should fight to the death when he sees him, but the Tiandeo he saw this time seemed to be obviously decadent. Mu felt that after 1,000 years, her old friend had become a little different from before. While Mu was thinking, there was a sudden loud noise from the other side of the bamboo forest. As if there was an earthquake, the ground beneath my feet shook, and the bamboo forest collapsed in large areas. Not good. Yefanyan looked worried and ran towards the distant mountains and forests, but Mu frowned and glanced at the sky above her head. Low villages built of bamboo and wood stand among dense mountain forests. If the human race wants to live peacefully in this world, they can only live in this remote jungle wilderness. And when Mu and Yefanyan arrived here, what they saw was this scene. The entire earth began to collapse and crack uncontrollably, and countless houses made of bamboo and wood collapsed one after another. The villagers fled towards the surrounding mountains and forests. Some people were swallowed up by the cracked earth in the next second and fell into the bottomless abyss. It's a natural disaster has appeared. Run, the village is over, the village is over. As if a disaster had struck, the entire village fell into panic. Holy Sun! At this time, the middle-aged man who had brought Muchiu to the bamboo forest and a group of fire subordinates came to Yefanyan's side, with solemn expressions. The vision of heaven and earth has appeared again, let's get out of here quickly. As the middle-aged man finished speaking, another sudden change occurred. Click, click dash. The people who were still running for the road looked up and saw that the sky above their heads suddenly shattered like a lens, revealing the endless void below. Countless fleeing humans below were all attracted by the shattered sky and swallowed into the endless void by an invisible suction force. At the same time, the earth is still spreading and cracking, and the mountain is sliding down rapidly as if it has encountered a mudslide. The sudden natural disaster quickly destroyed the originally peaceful village, and the terrifying phenomenon lasted for a full quarter of an hour before gradually fading away. When the remaining people came to their senses and turned to look around, they saw that the originally peaceful village had been reduced to ruins. People in ragged clothes were holding their heads and crying in the collapsed houses, and there were still ferocious cracks in the surrounding mountains and forests. The shattered void in the sky slowly healed and disappeared, turning into cracks that were difficult to see with the naked eye. This is. Muchiu stood on the top of the mountain, looking at the many strange phenomena in front of her, and narrowed her eyes. It's a natural disaster. Yefanyan stamped her feet behind him, with a complex expression on her face and a hint of inexplicable melancholy in her tone. It is also a precursor to the collapse of this world. Inside the dim church, a 12-pointed star formation was carved in blood on the wall. A few remaining soul fires swayed and burned in the corners of the magic circle, and a figure in red robes stood silently in front of the magic circle. He he he. At this moment, a strange and spine-tingling laughter suddenly came from the empty church. Bright red threads suddenly appeared in the church. The blood threads intertwined and entangled, and finally condensed into a figure wearing a clown mask and a red robe. The moment the clown appeared, the red-robed figure in front of the magic circle slowly turned around. He look what I found. The clown mask was half crying and half laughing, and a line of blood shot out from his arms, wrapping around an object and floating in front of the red-robed figure. The red-robed figure stopped attentively. What was in front of him was a photo that seemed to have been washed by blood. The image in the photo is a man in black robe wearing a crimson prajna mask and holding a bloody demon sword. The man in black robe stood among the collapsed ruins, the blade of the knife was exuding embers that had not faded away, and his chest was still flashing with balls of purple light. The box of monsters. The figure in red robe spoke word by word, his voice seemed low and strange. He yes, this figure looks so familiar. Do you think this is his successor, or? The clown's sinister laughter stopped abruptly. Or is he back? Thousands of years have passed, and even he can't. The red-robed figure in front of the magic circle stopped talking and suddenly became silent. Don't forget, he is the Lord of Eternal Night who fights against the sky. Is there anything else that he can't do? The clown suddenly changed his voice and sneered. But what if he comes back? Thousands of years have passed, and today's Yanjai dynasty is no longer the invincible Yeto he once dominated. GGG. The figure in red robe was silent for a long time and said to the clown, "WWW. How is the situation on the human side?" The clown stretched out his hand, looking like he had a chance to win. "We are under control, even the demon lord can't stop us." The red-robed figure nodded and bowed before the magic circle behind him. "It won't be long before our plan will be completed. Lord. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord." Author, MOCNU. Chapter 574. I don't know when it started, but all kinds of natural disasters and anomalies have appeared in all regions of eternal night. Some appeared in the mountains and wilderness, while others appeared in the major alien fortresses. Mountain torrents and tsunamis, shattered sky, volcanic earthquakes, each of these is far beyond the reach of human power. This natural disaster has lasted for many years, and no one knows what caused it. Some people say that this is a continuation of the doomsday disaster 1,000 years ago, and there are even rumors that if this continues, the whole world will be doomed. A group of humans in windbreakers are shuttling through the quiet mountains and forests. They are the fire race who live in seclusion in the bamboo forest. Yefanyan explained the strange phenomena of heaven and earth that had just occurred in the village beside Muqiu. Muqiu recalled the natural disaster scene of the sky collapsing and the ground sinking above the bamboo forest, and fell into deep thought. Seeing Muqiu lost in thought, Yefanyan bit his lower lip and sighed secretly. She didn't know why Muqiu hid his identity, but she knew that with the opponent's strength, even the entire human race would find it difficult to resist. After all, the one standing next to her was the first demon lord who created the Eternal Night clan 1,000 years ago, the Lord of Eternal Night. Thinking of this, Yefanyan felt relieved inexplicably, and did not tell everyone about Muqiu's true identity. The biggest boss in the world is standing next to her. What else is more terrifying? Of course there is. She subconsciously clenched the jade pendant around her neck. There was one thing she never told Muqiu. This was the second time she had experienced a time travel, and the soul in her body really came from the world of eternal night for 1,200 years. And the world she was in had collapsed and annihilated under the fall of natural disasters. In other words, in at most 200 years, this world will also turn into dust in the endless void together with the existence of the Eternal Night dynasty. What is now in front of Yefanyan is not only the fate of saving the human race, but also the extinction of all races, and the tragic ending of the whole world collapsing. Beside Muqiu, the beast-eared girl Qi Xiaoxiao was drooping her ears, looking listless, muttering. Strange, it's clearly there. During the battle between the human and the cage, she clearly sensed the emergence of the 6 auras, but when Muqiu felt it, the aura related to the 6 auras disappeared strangely. This made Qi Xiaoxiao, who wanted to help, feel a little guilty, and the whole person seemed to be a lot more decadent. Sister, do you think there are some signs between the senior and the Holy Sun? At the back of the team, the red-haired boy came to Hong Lian with a smirk on his face, looking at the backs of Muqiu and Yefanyan and gossiping. Hong Lian, who was originally looking at Muqiu's back, suddenly changed her expression and hurriedly said. Who said that? The senior and the Holy Sun are of noble status. You, don't talk nonsense. Seeing his sister's ears turn red, the red-haired boy touched his head, a little confused. I was clearly talking about the seniors and the Holy Sun. Why did my sister blush? Hong Lian and her group were also Fire Seed humans, and they originally planned to return to the Jade Sea ancestral land with Elder Chuans and others. Unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived at the border of Yuzhu, they were urgently summoned by the Holy Sun, so they changed their route and joined Yefanyan and others to attack the human cage. In this way, the group of people kept moving forward along the mountain road with their own thoughts. Gradually, the bamboo forest in front became sparse, and an empty flat land appeared in front of everyone. An ancient altar stood in the depths of the forest, with strange white lines carved on it. Muqiu recognized at a glance that the circular open space around it was more like a space barrier, and the model structure of the altar was also somewhat similar to the space teleportation array. Each fire seed base will have such a teleportation altar, which can support teleportation between 2 adjacent bases, for exchanging information on weekdays and for the whole family to escape when invaded. Muqiu nodded, and looked at Hong Lian behind him vaguely, and the latter's face suddenly became a little embarrassed. Their village was built in the desert Gobi, and they were poor and destitute. Not to mention building a teleportation altar, even gathering a space crystal core for teleportation was extremely difficult. The middle-aged man following Yefanyan took out a palm-sized space crystal core from his arms and was about to embed it into the groove above the altar. At this moment, Qi Xiaoxiao, who had been silent all the time, moved his ears, looked up at Muqiu and exclaimed. Master, there is a situation. Just when Qi Xiaoxiao's voice fell, a rustling sound came from the surrounding mountains and forests. In the blink of an eye, a strong corpse gas erupted in the forest, and the figures of the corpse clan rushed out of the forest, and surrounded everyone with fierce eyes. What's going on? It's the corpse clan. The corpse clan army is attacking. How is it possible? Why do the corpse clan know our whereabouts? Seeing that they were surrounded by the dense army of corpse clan, everyone was immediately panicked. If they were caught by other aliens, they would be killed or used as slaves at most, but being captured by the corpse clan would be worse than death, and they would be eaten alive as food on the chopping board. A group of corpse clans surrounded the humans, their eyes radiating greed. The aliens among humans are the most suitable high-end ingredients for them. The zombies were emitting surging magical energy fluctuations. There were no less than dozens of 9th-level demon generals, and even several powerful lord-level fluctuations were ready to move. They were all leaders of the zombie tribe from various tribes. For the glory of the zombie tribe, they came to fight against the rebels who killed the undead Owl King. Are you the blood demon who killed Lord Owl King? A lord-level zombie showed his ferocious fangs and looked at Mewtwo and others and said, "Human, you are really brave. You dare to be a mere ant." However, before the words fell, a cold blood light had broken through the air. Shua! The blood light quickly enlarged in the pupils, and the zombie lord suddenly felt a blockage in his throat, and then his whole body fell backwards powerlessly. As the zombie lord's head fell to the ground, the surrounding zombie army was immediately in an uproar. With just this one blow, he actually chopped off the head of a lord. Shut up! Mewtwo took back the magic sword in his hand, and the blade was still flashing with flowing blood. That is. Some corpses reacted and looked at the dark purple box that appeared on Mewtwo's chest with horror, exclaiming, "That is the weapon used by the first generation of demon lords in the legend, one of the ancestral demon soldiers. The Box of the Ghost. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the Flame Demon Lord." Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 575. It's unmistakable, that's one of the legendary ancestral demon soldiers, the Demon's Box. Many corpse clan strongmen looked at the box in front of Mewtwo and the demon knife in his hand with shocked expressions. The ancestral demon soldier has not been born for thousands of years. It is rumored that this is the most powerful demon soldier that surpasses the red quality. For a time, many eyes were focused on Mewtwo, with hatred, greed, and fear in their eyes. If we say that the legendary imperial weapon with the power to suppress luck is of great significance to the Yonjai clan and even the entire Yonjai dynasty, then this box of monsters that can swallow souls and drink blood is regarded as the supreme treasure by the corpse clan. The entire army of walking corpses is out to avenge the King of Owls. What's more, they are coveting the box of monsters in Mewtwo's hands. Many zombie tribe leaders looked at each other and said in a low voice, "Come together." They were all powerful lords who suppressed one side, but they did not dare to underestimate Mewtwo at this moment. After all, he is the terrifying existence that once used the ancestral demon soldiers to kill the undead Owl King. For a moment, corpse energy surged, and countless ferocious corpse tribes roared and rushed towards many humans, with astonishing power. No, stop them quickly. The hundreds of humans present were all powerful human aliens among the fire species. The elite among the elite. At this moment, they all took out their magic soldiers to fight against the corpse tribe. However, the hundreds of humans were too insignificant compared to the zombie army in front of them, and they were instantly swallowed up by the raging zombie tide. The human race fell into a disadvantage for an instant. Countless humans died under the siege of the zombie clan, and the remaining humans were only struggling to resist. On the other side, in the center of the zombie wave, majestic corpse energy rose into the sky, and leaders of the zombie tribes from all sides launched a siege on Mewtwo at the same time. A deformed zombie with sharp teeth and claws and a huge body, a terrifying vampire with blood-red eyes and wings on its back, a mummy with a shriveled body but strong soul fluctuations. Countless Lord-level energies gathered together, and even dozens of 9th-level demon generals joined the battle to besiege Mu-Chiu. The entire Yuzhu territory has not seen a battle of this magnitude for hundreds of years. Master. Qi Xiaoxiao carefully pulled the corner of Mu-Chiu's clothes, her body trembling unconsciously. But Mu-Chiu, who was standing in the center of the zombie storm, held the demon knife in front of her with a calm expression. The blade trembled slightly and a strange blood shone on it. "You're lucky, it seems you can have a good meal again." The corner of Mu-Chiu's mouth raised slightly, and he inserted the long sword in his hand into the ground beneath his feet, causing the desolate earth to crack instantly. In an instant, blood flowed between heaven and earth, and a dark red ancient door vaguely opened. An endless sea of blood emerged from the gate, illuminating the entire world with blood. The surging blood waves swallowed up the surrounding corpses in an instant. Immediately afterwards, countless blood souls surged out of the blood sea and floated between heaven and earth. The raging dead ghosts let out bursts of wailing, dragging each zombie clan into the endless sea of blood. In just a few breaths, nearly half of the zombie clan was swallowed up by the sea of blood and turned into part of the undead in the sea of blood. Several leaders of the corpse clan broke through the heavy interceptions of blood souls and cut off the bloody hands that were protruding one after another. "Go on, take him down first. The demon lord has an order to capture them alive." A zombie exuding strong corpse aura passed over the sea of blood like a wind and thunder, and its sinister claws clawed at Mu-Chiu's head. But the sea of blood under his feet suddenly rolled over, and a huge bloody pliers protruded from the sea of blood, instantly cutting off the zombie's arm. Blood spurted out, broken arms flew everywhere, and many zombie clans were forced to stop. This is. They saw a huge bloody giant scorpion emerging from the sea of blood, with a ferocious face and full of evil energy, stopping them. Lord of the Northern Desert. The evil souls who die in the realm of hungry ghosts will eventually become part of the sea of blood. Before many zombie clan leaders could react, more and more dead souls emerged from the sea of blood, trying to drag them into the endless sea of blood. Roar. A huge netherworld tiger with scalding black flames all over its body rushed forward, carrying a torrent of bloody flames. Everywhere it passed, the zombie clan turned into charred dregs. In a matter of moments, countless zombie clansmen had died in the attack of the black tiger and the blood souls all over the sky. Before everyone who was fighting with the zombie tribe could realize what happened, all they saw was that the color in front of them turned into blood red. Countless ghosts filled the air, and then all the corpse clans were dragged into the sea of blood and disappeared. This, the power of the ancestral demon soldier. The middle-aged man next to Yefanyan swallowed his saliva and looked at the crystal demon knife shining with blood in Mu-Chiu's hand in astonishment. Zombie clan, thousands of years have passed, but they are still a little disobedient. As the last corpse clan lord was bitten by the netherworld evil tiger and finally fell into the endless sea of blood, Mu-Chiu looked at the crying blood souls around him and murmured to himself. The next second, he pulled out the demon knife from the ground, and the bloody door that appeared in mid-air closed, and the surging blood tide suddenly dissipated. There were only a few dozen humans left who had survived the siege of the zombie clan. At this moment, they were looking at the empty wasteland at their feet with a look of disbelief in their eyes. The endless surging corpse tide was swallowed up by the sea of blood and completely eliminated in just a short moment. "Leave here first." It was the middle-aged man next to Yefanyan who reacted and quickly took out the space crystal core and embedded it into the altar. In an instant, a space barrier spread out with the altar as the center, wrapping everyone on the battlefield. As a group of white beams flashed by, dozens of people disappeared on the spot. Ka. Soon after everyone disappeared, the space crystal core embedded in the altar also exhausted the last bit of energy. There was a crisp explosion, and the ancient altar exploded together, turning into a piece of rubble. At the same time, the sky in the distance was suddenly covered with a layer of haze. A wave of magic energy that was more terrifying than the Corpse Clan surged in. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 576. Soon after Yefanyan and the others left, the sky above the mountain forest where they were originally located was suddenly covered by dark clouds. There was a violent galloping sound from the earth, and a cry came from the sky far away. Large areas of bamboo plants withered and declined under the erosion of darkness. The rumbling sound of horse hooves resounded at the end of the horizon. A well-trained elite cavalry galloped towards the depths of the mountain forest. Even in the sky, there were traces of birds and beasts flying by. In the blink of an eye, this elite force of thousands of people had crossed the mountains and forests and came to the center of the altar in the depths. What is this? When they saw the traces left on the battlefield, and occasionally saw some corpses scattered around, they were stunned for a moment. It was only a moment before they joined the army of the Corpse Clan. How could the battle end so quickly? The soldiers of the army keenly noticed that most of the corpses on the ground belonged to humans, and there were very few corpses of the Corpse Clan. Where did the Corpse Clan army, including several lords, run to? What's going on? A rough voice came from the rear of the army, not disguising its wild momentum at all. An extremely huge figure walked out from the rear of the army, and the huge shadow even covered the mountains and forests on both sides. As this figure appeared, a general in the lead said, "Lord our King, we are a step late. There are traces of natural disasters in the human village in the distance. And the corpse army and the fire humans here who arrived here in advance all disappeared strangely after a battle. They would never have thought that a team of thousands of people would be swallowed up by a sudden sea of blood. Mysteriously disappeared." The tall figure walked to the open space in the center of the battlefield, and the ruins of an altar could be seen at the deepest part. A bunch of useless things, they can't even keep a few humans under control. Find them for me, dig deep into the ground and find them for me. You dare to kidnap my daughter, you really don't know how to live or die. As the rough roar came out, the monsters hidden in the surrounding mountains and forests also roared in a low voice. The towering palace complex was surrounded by hazy clouds and mist, and the mountains behind could be vaguely seen. From time to time, you can hear the crisp chirping of birds, just like a fairyland on earth. With a loud noise, the door of a palace deep in the palace complex suddenly opened, and several figures in armor walked out. In the depths of the hall, there was a bed covered by a bead curtain, and through the curtain, you could vaguely see the delicate body. On both sides of the bed, there were two beast-eared girls dressed as palace maids slowly shaking the palm leaf fans in their hands. "Lady Miji, this is the fresh red fruit tribute by the Night Slave clan. Lord Yasha ordered us to present it to you. In addition, the magic soldiers tailor-made for you by the Tashan clan have also been cast. Please accept them." A man in armor stepped forward and said respectfully. The man had dark purple skin and looked like a human, but he had a pair of horns on his head and his eyes were blood red. Behind the man, several men held jade plates with treasures covered with golden silk gauze. "I appreciate Yasha's kindness. As for the things, you can take them back. I have no chance to enjoy them." A lazy voice came from the bed. The casual opening brought a charming voice that was very attractive. The delicate body stretched out, making it hard to imagine what kind of peerless beauty was on the bed. The armored man at the head frowned and said with a meaningful fist, "My queen, I'm afraid I can't obey your order. My master is sincere to you, I believe you have seen it. This time he ordered us to come here to invite you to participate in the feast of the Night Clan. I hope you won't disappoint him." The armored man spoke righteously, looking up at the bed deep in the bedroom with a sharp gaze. He. A numbing laugh came from the bed. The young general is really straightforward, but you may not know. The charming voice suddenly slowed down, and said word by word. A man who is too straightforward will not be liked by women. As soon as the voice fell, a terrifying energy wave broke out from the depths of the palace. A fiery red tail suddenly shot out through the curtains, instantly piercing through several figures including the armored man. The sound of flesh being torn apart echoed in the hall, and a big hole was instantly punched through the chest of the armored man. Before his body fell to the ground, there was still a look of horror in the man's eyes. The fiery red tail shook off the blood on it, and then retracted into the gauze curtain. Soon, a maid cleaned up the corpses and bloodstains on the ground, and the palace returned to its spotless appearance. "Throw those things out," the woman on the bed said lazily. "Yes." The maid next to him said to the gauze curtain hesitantly. "My queen, the night demon Owl King. Why should I care about him when I am doing my job?" The woman in the gauze curtain yawned, unwilling to say more on this topic, and then asked. "How is the progress of the person I am looking for?" "My queen, Xiao Yu and the others have already started investigating, and I believe there will be a reply soon." At the same time, in a hidden village at the foot of a mountain, a bright white light suddenly flashed on the altar in the center of the village. Accompanied by a wave of space fluctuations, a group of dozens of people appeared around the altar. "Finally out." Yeshinwei exhaled, enjoying the fresh air in the forest. With his extraordinary physique and Mu Chiu's help, his injuries have been mostly healed, and his temperament has returned to his unruly appearance. "Wait, there's a problem." The middle-aged man next to Yefanyan noticed something unusual and quickly stopped his companions. Everyone realized that the atmosphere in the village had become particularly quiet. The huge commotion caused by the appearance of dozens of people in the village, but no one from the houses on both sides came out to investigate. Qi Xiaoxiao was keenly aware that there were pairs of eyes staring at them in the houses on the side. At this moment, a wave of magic energy emerged from the depths of the village and rushed straight towards the altar. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Sign in at the end of the world. Start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 577. After a brief silence, a surge of magic suddenly erupted from the depths of the village. Countless figures emerged from all directions of the village, surrounding Mu Chiu and others who had just landed here. At the same time, the closed houses on both sides opened from the inside, and many villagers walked out of the houses, looking at them with fear and trembling. Until then, Yefanyan and others suddenly realized that this human village had already been occupied by aliens. Everyone looked closely and saw that they were surrounded by some half-orcs like Qi Xiaoxiao. Although their faces were no different from humans, they always had some characteristics similar to orcs. Or they had a pair of animal ears on their heads, or they had sharp teeth, and their limbs turned into sharp claws like alien beasts. The leader was a woman in gorgeous palace clothes, with a pretty face and a pair of rabbit ears on her head. She stepped forward and said to everyone, "May I ask who is the blood demon?" Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what the other party was up to. But without a doubt, they all subconsciously looked at the black figure in front of the team. Mu Chiu's terrifying method of summoning the blood sea to engulf the zombie army just now really shocked everyone, and some people still feel deeply terrified by it. Mu Chiu looked at the woman in palace dress with interest and nodded. "It's me." He saw at a glance that the woman in front of him was a lord-level strongman. The woman in palace dress bowed slightly and said, "Mr. Blood Demon, my master wants to see you." "Your master?" Mu Chiu raised an arc at the corner of his mouth and looked around. The villagers on both sides all lowered their heads. "Well, let me see what kind of person your master is." The woman in palace dress nodded and looked at Mu Chiu. "Please follow me." Yu followed the woman in palace dress, while Yefanyan and others behind him looked puzzled and did not act rashly. "Son, these people are dressed like..." the middle-aged man reminded Yefanyan and stopped talking. Chi Xiaoxiao looked around and found that there was no sign of movement, so she hurriedly followed Yu's footsteps. "Master, wait for me." The gorgeously dressed woman in palace dress and a group of half-orcs led Yu through the village. All the passing humans bowed their heads respectfully and did not dare to offend. Finally, the woman in palace dress came to an open space deep in the village, and a white crystal that released space fluctuations emerged with a wave of her hand. "WWW. It's a teleportation crystal!" Chi Xiaoxiao exclaimed. "This crystal made with special craftsmanship has a better teleportation effect than the altar, and it can be carried with you. It can be regarded as a treasure comparable to the purple magic soldier." Chi Xiaoxiao used such a disposable teleportation crystal to escape from her family, but because there was no positioning coordinate, she ended up in the northern desert border. The woman in the palace skirt raised her hand and waved it. Under the stimulation of the magic energy fluctuation, the white crystal immediately burst into dazzling light. Another group of space barriers emanated, enveloping everyone including Yu. The eyes were suddenly covered by a white light. When they opened their eyes again, they had appeared in a towering palace surrounded by clouds and mist. The smoke and fragrance of clouds and smoke made people feel like they had walked into a fairyland on earth. "Sir Blood Demon, please follow me." The woman in the palace skirt looked back at her subordinates behind her. All the guards dispersed, leaving only the woman in the palace skirt leading the way. "Master, I seem to know who they are." Chi Xiaoxiao approached Yu and whispered on tiptoe. "Oh." Yu narrowed his eyes. Chi Xiaoxiao, the know-it-all, always remembered something at the critical moment. It is said that among the 12 night owls there is a beautiful woman with a stunning appearance and natural charm. Just one look will make everyone fall in love with her. Even many owl kings can hardly resist her charm. Even several owl kings, including the night demon owl king, did not hesitate to fight for her. People call this charming owl king Empress Meiji. Meiji. Yu muttered to himself, not knowing what he was thinking of. It's just that Empress Meiji rarely appears in the public eye. The last time she appeared was at the Night Clan banquet decades ago. Chi Xiaoxiao's eyes flashed when she said this. She also wanted to see what kind of face this most beautiful woman in the world had. Decades ago. Yu pulled the corner of his mouth. This beauty who brought disaster must be quite old. It is said that the residence of the Empress Meiji is built in a fairyland-like palace. Even the contemporary demon lord has difficulty in inviting this beautiful woman with rich experience. While the two were talking, the woman in palace dress had brought them to a bedroom deep inside. The heavy door of the palace was like an ancient imperial palace, magnificent and gorgeous. "The Empress has been waiting inside for a long time. Please come in, Your Excellency." The woman bowed slightly and stretched out her hand. Yu nodded, and as the door of the palace opened, he stepped into it. Chi Xiaoxiao behind him followed excitedly. She couldn't wait to see the true face of the Empress Meiji. But she was stopped by the woman in palace dress after just 2 steps. "The Empress has ordered that no outsiders are allowed to enter." The little girl pursed her lips and could only stop helplessly. When Yu walked into the bedroom, the scene in front of him was the same as he expected. The scenery in the hall was extremely luxurious, with carved beams and painted buildings, magnificent, and the pillars on both sides were carved with blackbirds and phoenixes. In the depths of the hall was a bed paved with jade. Through the hazy bead curtain, one could vaguely see a delicate figure. "Are you the blood demon?" An extremely charming voice came from the bead curtain, which made people numb and seductive. But for some reason, this voice sounded a little trembling. "If this is your name, then let it be." Yu's face was indifferent, and a dark purple box appeared in front of him. Unexpectedly, at the moment when the ghost box appeared, a huge energy wave suddenly erupted from the depths of the hall. How dare you plot against the holy object of the first generation of demon lords? The voice of the pearl curtain was filled with anger, and a fiery red foxtail shot out from the pearl curtain and stabbed towards Muchu's chest. Swish! Faced with the sudden attack, Muchu just stretched out two fingers and easily caught the stabbing foxtail. You are still as perverse as before. A smile appeared on Muchu's face. Really, it's really you. The charming voice in the pearl curtain suddenly stopped, and she pulled the pearl curtain open in disbelief, revealing a charming face that captivated everyone. My lord, it's really you. Sign in at the end of the world, start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 578. As the bead curtain was drawn open, a beautiful face appeared in front of Muchu. It was a palace beauty in a red gauze skirt, with a gorgeous appearance, a plump figure, and drooping hair. A beauty mole under the corner of her eye added a bit of charm to her, and her every frown and smile could be fascinating and arouse people's reverie. It was such a peerless beauty who brought disaster to the country and the people. At this moment, her rosy lips were slightly open, and her eyes were curved. She was obviously smiling, but there were crystal tears flashing in her eyes. Tick-tock. As tears dripped from the corners of her eyes, the woman's eyes showed an unprecedented joy. She flew out of the white jade bed, fell into Muchu's arms, and cried. My lord, so many years have passed, you are finally back. The woman fell into Muchu's arms, as if she was holding a rare treasure in front of her, clutching the corner of Muchu's clothes tightly, unwilling to let go. It is hard to imagine that the most beautiful lady in the world can have such a side of losing her composure. It seems that because of the large amplitude of the movement, the gauze dress on the woman's shoulders slipped off, revealing the smooth and delicate skin like milk. A burst of fragrant wind blew into Muchu's nose, and he was slightly stunned. For himself, it was no more than half a year since he left the end of the world. But for people of this era, a whole 1,000 years have passed. The enchanting woman in his arms was none other than Luqianqian, the nine-tailed fox who had fought with Muchu in the Zilan base in the end of the world, and was later held hostage by the alien sect and was personally named one of the Owl Kings by Muchu. Compared with 1,000 years ago, Luqianqian at this time not only lost her immaturity and tenderness, but also showed the extraordinary charm of a mature woman. Like a delicate and beautiful flower, or like a ripe peach, ready for you to pick. Muchu was holding a peerless beauty that could make all the male blood in the world boil in his arms, but he suddenly asked at an inappropriate time. Why are you here? Although he had some guesses in his heart, Muchu was still surprised that the so-called Empress Meiji turned out to be an old acquaintance from 1,000 years ago. Through Luqianqian's attack just now and the extreme charm that she inadvertently exuded, Muchu had already judged that after 1,000 years, Luqianqian had broken through the bottleneck of mortals and was one step away from the realm of Daoyuan. She even had her own Daoyun, and she only needed an opportunity to break through the realm of Daoyuan. But even so, Muchu still had doubts in his heart. Even if Luqianqian had advanced to the extraordinary realm of Daoyuan, the lifespan of a Daoyuan-level person was at most a few hundred years. If there was no spell like Muchu that could extract the soul essence or immortality, even a Daoyuan-level strongman would die with hatred after hundreds of years and turn into a handful of dust in time. Luqianqian in front of him has not shown any signs of aging after 1,000 years, but her spirit is extremely full. Muchu can feel that Luqianqian's physique is still in peak condition, far from signs of decline. Luqianqian raised her head after hearing this, and crystal tears hung on her straight eyelashes. My lord, I knew you would definitely come back. In Luqianqian's tearful and lovable crying, Muchu also learned the whole story. It turned out that at the end of the battle in the beast nest, Muchu disappeared strangely, but the Lei Shen and other alien cult envoys who fought with him were also seriously injured and retreated. The final result was that the human side retreated, and the Eternal Night Dynasty occupied the beast nest and was arrogant. Since then, the alien cult has rarely appeared in front of the world. On the contrary, the Eternal Night Dynasty has further expanded its power under the leadership of Xiao Hanyan and others, becoming the well-deserved first overlord in the end of the world. The story after that is well known. After several years of accumulation, Shueqianya realized the way of life and death and became the second generation of the King of Eternal Night after Mu Qiu. Under the leadership of Shueqianya, who is known as the Empress, the Eternal Night Dynasty officially began to conquer. I have been waiting for your return, my lord. Lu Qianqian buried her head in Mu Qiu's arms, like a docile kitten. It turns out that the reason why Lu Qianqian can stay in red and live for thousands of years is ultimately due to the place where she lives. Mu Qiu looked at the white jade bed deep in the hall, and felt it carefully. There were some unusual energy fluctuations overflowing from the bed. The second-generation demon lord Shueqianya realized the way of life and death and advanced to the source of Tao, and the successor of Shueqianya was Ye Wuchen, who was a member of the Eternal Night royal family. In Mu Qiu's impression, Ye Wuchen was still the dull little disciple of Ji Yufeng. When he saw Mu Qiu, he couldn't help but tremble and kneeled down. The Dao realm that Ye Wuchen comprehended turned out to be the Dao of time and space. Although Ye Wuchen's Dao of time and space did not have the abnormal ability to travel through time and space like the six paths of reincarnation, it was also quite useful in the transformation of time and space. The white jade bed in Lu Qianqian's deep palace had a time and space formation carved by Ye Wuchen, and the Dao of time and space in it distorted time. As long as the crystal core energy is injected into it regularly, coupled with the continuous blessing of Dayuan level strong men, the flow of time inside will be 10 or even 20 times slower than the outside world. This is why Lu Qianqian can live forever and stay young forever. So that's it. There are thousands of great ways in the world, and the various wonderful abilities of Dayuan level are unimaginable for ordinary people. Mu Qiu took out a cute butterfly-shaped hairpin from the box of the monster and put it on Lu Qianqian's head. Lu Qianqian buried her head in Mu Qiu's arms, and suddenly felt her hair being gently stroked. When she looked up, she saw Mu Qiu's smiling face. This is what Lu Jian's asked me to give you. Back then, Lu Qianqian's father was trapped and locked at the bottom of a deep lake by the alien section before he died. He not only gave the source of Zekan in his body, but also gave this hairpin to Mu Qiu. Now Mu Qiu gave the hairpin to Lu Qianqian, which was also considered to be a promise made at the beginning. Daddy. Lu Qianqian touched the hairpin on her head, and there was a faint mist in her eyes. After reminiscing about the past, Mu Qiu also planned to get to the point. Where are the others now? Since Lu Qianqian can live for 1,000 years with the help of the way of time and space, it is impossible for Shueqianya, Xiao Hanyan, and others to die just like that. Lu Qianqian also came back to her senses from her memories, wiped away the tears in her eyes, and a cunning look appeared on her face. Let's not talk about other things for now. My lord made me wait for 1,000 years. How will you compensate me for this longing? Oh? What do you think? Lu Qianqian stood on tiptoe, leaned her head on Mu Qiu's shoulder, and whispered in Mu Qiu's ear. Satisfy me, and I will tell you everything. The thin gauze fell off her shoulders, and the skin like a peeled egg was filled with a hint of milk-like fragrance. There are still many things I want to tell you. The charming voice was so touching, and the fragrant aroma made people feel numb in their hearts, and they couldn't stop. Until this moment, Mu Qiu finally knew where Lu Qianqian's Taoism was. Use charm to enter the Tao, the way of charm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sign in at the end of the world. Start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 579. In a certain human tribe under the cliff, horses galloped, birds and beasts chirped, and the sky above the tribe was covered with a black haze. The air was filled with pungent blood, and along the human camp, there were corpses and broken arms everywhere. Teng teng teng. The sound of thousands of galloping horses resounded in the center of the camp, and countless black figures on war horses flew past the tribe's camp at high speed. Human beings fled towards the distance, but in the next second their limbs were chopped off by sharp butcher knives. Finally, their bodies lay broken and lay on the ground, their lives stained with yellow sand. Ggg. Along with the long neighing of horses, these black figures also stopped in front of the corpses. The black figures wearing armor also have human faces, but the difference is that the skin of these figures is dark purple, and the pupils are all blood red. Upon closer inspection, even the war horses they ride on are different. Some of these war horses have horns on their heads, and some even have rotten flesh, revealing the gloomy white bones underneath. At this moment, a powerful energy wave erupted from the depths of the tribe. I saw a shirtless man with muscles all over his body leaping up, surrounded by majestic blood energy, and rushed into the encirclement of the cavalry with a loud shout. This strong man was nearly 3 meters tall, exuding a terrifying murderous aura. His big hands were so powerful that all the foreign horses he passed by were torn in half by his big hands. Even the 9th level demon general in the battlefield was no match for him. In an instant, his limbs were torn apart by the strong man, showing an unstoppable force. This strong man is clearly a Lord-level strongman. You must know that the human race in today's world is declining. Even a Lord-level strongman is already the top powerhouse among the human race. We, the Nan's people, have never provoked the Ya people in the slightest, nor have we set foot on foreign territory. Why do Yunkai want to massacre our Nan's people? The strong man's fists turned into iron arms, he roared and killed the surrounding aliens, and he asked questions. After saying that, spikes sprouted from the strong man's steel-like skin, directly breaking through the heavy siege of the aliens, and he was about to escape towards the distant mountains. At the critical moment, a figure stood in front of the strong man. "Get away!" The strong man shouted loudly and waved his big hand to tear the aliens blocking the road into pieces, but suddenly the figure stretched out his hand. The strong human man only felt a huge force coming from in front of him, and his whole body was thrown into the air in the next moment, slamming heavily into the rocks behind him. The black figure then turned sideways, wearing an armor engraved with animal patterns, revealing a ferocious face like a demon mask. The moment this figure appeared, all the aliens bowed their heads. See Lord Night Fury. In the next second, the collapsed rocks in the distance suddenly exploded, and the muscular man rushed out again and rushed toward the masked man in armor. Court death. A cold light flashed in the armored man's eyes, a stream of light flashed in his hand, and he raised his head and waved it in front of him. As the cold light flashed away, the strong man's body stagnated in mid-air for a moment, his pupils dilated, and his eyes were full of incredible color. Then there was a swish sound, and the strong man's body was cut off at the waist and broken into 2 pieces. With just one strike, this powerful Lord-level man was killed on the spot. The fire of mankind will never burn again. Hot blood spilled into the sky, and the armored man wearing a devil mask also retracted the long knife in his hand. Upon closer inspection, I discovered that the long knife in the man's hand was actually a bone blade shaped like a spine, with a dark light shining on the blade. "Father!" A man's shout came from the sky, and a huge eagle beast was seen flying from the horizon in the distance. A man also wearing armor jumped down from above and came to kneel in front of the masked man. "Father, I have found Xiao Xiao's location." "Where is she?" The armored man didn't react and asked in a calm tone. "My son discovered that Xiao Xiao was held hostage by a human man in the northern desert. He should be in Yuzhu territory at this moment, and the human who held Xiao Xiao hostage was the blood demon who killed the undead Owl King." This person is Chi Xiaoxio's fiancé who rushed back from the northern desert, Prince Yesikong, the Prince of Xiao. Yesikong was extremely lucky that he did not take action rashly in the northern desert. The opponent was a ruthless person who could even kill an owl king. Blood demon. The armored man remembered the instructions given by the demon lord and snorted coldly. I would like to see if the human fire can be rekindled. At the same time, a trembling principal-level aura suddenly erupted from the misty palace. The aura of terror permeated every corner of the palace uncontrollably, frightening the surrounding maids to kneel down and tremble. From the bed deep in the hall, a woman's intermittent low moans could be heard. The numbing sound was seductive and penetrated deeply into one's bones. Through the hazy bead curtain, you can vaguely see the irritating and exquisite body, and the white and tender skin is as rosy as a ripe apple. The smell in the air is as blue as musk. Mu Qiu, with her chest half naked, lay flat on the bed made of white jade, and slowly stretched out her arms. Is this the unity of time and space? It has many wonderful uses. Feeling the weak airflow from the fingertips, the speed of time in this bed is indeed much slower than that in the outside world. In other words, in this space of only a few square meters, it is indeed possible for living beings to achieve immortality in a certain sense. But this also requires a huge price. The energy crystal cores to be supplied are already astronomical figures, and at least a half-step Daiyuan level strongman is required to bless them all the time. The biggest flaw is that the user has to stay inside the bed space all the time, which has caused Lu Qianqian to become a millennium homegirl who stays at home and rarely shows up. It is precisely because of this that Empress Meiji has become a legend among the people. A woman's numb panting sound came from the side, and her voice trembled with a bit of satisfaction. I should have thought of it earlier. Using charm to enter the Tao, after so many years, you still keep it. 1,000 years have passed, and even humans with poor talents should have made some progress. And the way of charm that Lu Qianqian comprehended on her own has already taken shape, but because she has not been able to cross the last bottom line, she has not been able to enter the realm of Daiyuan. As soon as the words fell, Mu Qiu immediately felt a soft mass pressing against his chest, with a creamy lubricity. Her white and tender skin was like the finest mutton fat jade, and her soft hair brushed across her chest. Lu Qianqian seemed to want to rub herself into Mu Qiu's body, and whispered in Mu Qiu's ear. No matter what, I still took that step before my sisters. Now you should tell me where the others have gone. Mu Qiu pinched Lu Qianqian's white cheeks and said with a smile. Lu Qianqian lay on Mu Qiu's chest like a docile kitten, drawing circles on his broad chest. Everyone has been waiting for you. Sign in at the end of the world. Start by devouring the flame demon lord. Author, MOCNU. Chapter 580. Behind a magnificent palace building, a magnificent gate stands at the deepest part of the palace complex. The giant gate, more than 10 meters high, is made of golden ore and engraved with light golden patterns. Feeling the sharp spatial fluctuations contained in it, Mu Qiu looked at the palace-dressed woman beside him. Lu Qianqian was wearing a red-waisted long skirt. Her face was rosy and translucent, revealing a hint of charm, as if she was a gorgeous flower just picked. Even a loose gauze skirt could not hide her curvy and exquisite figure, and her pair of watery eyes were full of affection, which could be called the world's best beauty. Since she was promoted to the Daiyuan realm, Lu Qianqian, who had already entered the Dao with charm, has become even more charming. Just standing there is enough to tease every male's heart and soul. At Mu Qiu's signal, Lu Qianqian raised her hand and a crystal was embedded in the groove in front of the gate. In an instant, a huge spatial fluctuation emerged from the huge stone gate more than 10 meters high. This is actually a giant space portal. It is unknown how much precious materials are consumed just to build a teleportation altar in the outside world, and the energy released by this giant door that is more than 10 meters high has reached the level of destruction. Boom! With a loud sound of the door opening, a dazzling white light flashed, and the figures of Miu and Lu Qianqian also disappeared on the spot. Not far behind the two, the petite Qi Xiao stared at the disappearing backs of Miu and Lu Qianqian, her eyes shining. This is the legendary beauty queen, even the Owl King is fascinated by her. Then the corners of her mouth curled up again, and a puzzled expression appeared on her face. Why, she always felt that the relationship between her master and this queen was a little unusual. With a flash of white light, the vision in front of her gradually recovered, and a crisp bird chirping came to her ears. Miu looked around. They passed through the space gate and came to a deep mountain forest. The surrounding environment is completely covered with green, and towering plants are everywhere. Giant trees are intertwined and interwoven on the cliffs of the mountains and forests, and various flowers and plants are located on the cliffs. The trees on both sides are tens of meters high, and the horizon is out of sight. The long cry of some strange beasts came from the sky, and the roar of wild beasts was faintly heard in the depths of the valley. It seems that people are in a primeval forest at a glance. Miu noticed that the valley was filled with extremely rich energy fluctuations. In this era where all living things are full of magic energy, the more powerful the energy is, the more vigorous the life is. In the deepest part of the valley, there stands a towering giant tree that is almost 100 meters high, with lush branches and leaves, tangled roots, and exuding an ancient and vicissitudes of life. Almost at the moment when Miu set foot in this valley, the old giant tree seemed to have sensed something, and its branches and leaves shook, and its huge body emitted a fluorescent green light. The trees within a radius of dozens of miles also echoed and released green fluorescence, as if the ministers were bowing to their supreme king. "My lord demon, I have been waiting for you here for many years." At this moment, an old voice echoed in the valley, and the fluorescence emitted by the towering tree also reached its peak in an instant. The scattered fluorescence gathered, and the figure of an old man with white hair and beard slowly walked out of the diffuse fluorescence with a kind smile. "Oh, it's you." When he saw the old man and the towering tree behind him, a gleam of light appeared in Miu's eyes. No wonder he felt a sense of familiarity as soon as he set foot in this area. It turned out that this place was the southern border where the human race and the beast race fought that day, the nest of all beasts. And the kind-eyed old man in front of him, who was the incarnation of the towering tree, was the 1,000-year-old tree king rooted deep in the beast's nest. Now, 1,000 years have passed since the battle of the beast nest. This giant tree is even close to the 10,000-year mark, but it is still full of vitality and shows no signs of withering. "Old man, after so many years, you are still so energetic." Lu Qianqian put her hands on her waist. Her beautiful eyes were upside down, and she was indignant at the old man's pretentiousness. Her gentleness and fragility were all left for Miu to see. In the eyes of outsiders, she was still the peerless and beautiful lady of the world. "I am nothing but a withered bone in a grave, but your charm is still as strong as it was in the past." The tree king stroked his graying beard, reminisced about the past, and then turned his gaze to Miu, who had a calm expression. "The demon lord is the one who really shocked me. After 1,000 years, he still looks old. Even the vitality in his body is so strong that I am ashamed." This statement was not a polite remark from the tree king. As a being who has lived for tens of thousands of years, he truly felt that the life energy in Miu's body was as majestic as the ocean. Miu was too lazy to listen to the two foxes reminiscing about the past, so he said directly, "You look like you have been prepared for this, so why did you call me here?" The tree king was definitely not just reminiscing about the past with him. He looked at Miu and sighed. "I asked the demon lord to come here this time to ask you to save someone." "One person?" "Yes, this person can only be saved if the demon lord comes in person." As the tree king finished speaking, the roots and branches at the foot of the giant tree suddenly rose from the ground. The intertwined branches slowly spread out, revealing a crystal-clear crystal coffin inside. In the crystal coffin, a delicate body in a white dress lay flat, eyes closed, face peaceful, like a sleeping princess. Mu Qiu had expected this, but his pupils shrank slightly when he saw this face, and he murmured. Xiao Wen.